everybody hits rock bottom. What was your experience?
Getting bounced out of school my sophomore year. For the first 2 years, I went out of state to Oregon, and I was working on a philosophy degree. And to make a long story very short, the school and I had a philosophical difference, and it basically ended up with me saying I fired them. They would say they fired me. But anyways, that was pretty tough. Came back to Houston, where I still am. I was in the doghouse. I was working 2 jobs back to back, and it was a little tough to make, a little tight to make ends meet for that. I was still fortunate enough to have a roof over my head, but that was pretty rough.
What was your mental state at the time, and kind of how were you how were you dealing with that, with your struggles?
So the thing that kicked me out of whack was that I was having to deal with stomping out internal slave morality. So that's a topic for another video. But there were some views that I'd been taught growing up, generally accepted by society, and these are the type of things that make everyone kind of like feel good, but don't necessarily align with the results that you want. And so I was having to go through and clean house internally, and that's a very painful process to do. And even today, like when I'm kind of like cognizant of the thing, it's hard to do. Basically, think of it like this: you have this massive onslaught of cognitive dissonance that you have to deal with, and so if you start dealing with it, imagine you've got like, you've done really well in your brokerage account or whatever, right? And then imagine that like without like looking at the account all day, you see something flashing on the news, you get a few text messages from friends, whatever, saying, oh, the market's down, the market's down, the market's down. And you know that as soon as you pull up your brokerage account, you're going to see a sea of red. So what can you do? Well, you can either like be an adult, look at your brokerage account and say, well, yep, I'm down. Or you can basically say, we're just not going to open it. I'm a fan of the latter, not the former, because I mean, who isn't? But it's kind of the same thing, I think, philosophically that I had to work through, where I realized like, well, wait a minute, there are some, just as you can invest your financial capital in, stocks, options, whatever, you can also invest your emotional capital, I think, in various ideas, concepts, precepts, or whatever. And when you come to realize, I think most guys, and probably some women too, but definitely this is probably a little bit more close to the male experience, starting in the late teens, early 20s, you kind of go through this phase where you realize, well, wait a minute, a lot of the stuff I've been told and being told out of a good place, it doesn't necessarily line up with reality. And I thought this stuff was true. And now all of a sudden I'm finding what I thought was true, and more importantly, what I thought was not wrong, is wrong. So therefore, what else do I also think is true and also think that can't be wrong is wrong? This is an existential crisis. The bottom falls out of your internal emotional market. So I'm going to go through and clean up that, and kind of liken it back to, when you hit rock bottom, it's that scene from Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind.
If I had to lie, steal, cheat, or kill, as God is my witness.
If I have to lie, steal, cheat, or kill, as God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again. But anyways, hard to bounce back before you hit bottom, as I've got a good friend's mom that likes to say, and so that's probably the low point from Planet Justin that I can think of.
What philosophical ideas were you really battling?
Oh, so it was basically slave morality. The West grows up on a diet of slave morality, which is, I would argue, utterly and totally a misrepresentation of reality. We do it because I think people want to feel it's think of it as like, this is a stretch, but not an unfair stretch. Think of like, the Disney fairy tale ethos or whatever, right? Which junk food for the philosophical soul. It tastes good up front, but there's no real nutrients in it. And this is evidenced by the fact that, when people actually try to seek happiness in life, they do not find it. Actions that they think that they would have to pursue to seek happiness produce anything but happiness.
I would say to the contrary. My real rock bottom was probably during the very beginning of March of 2020. And if you've been with us for a while, that was also the best point of my life, because that's where I really started to work hard. But it was hitting rock bottom that helped me to really get to where I am now. But so what actually happened? I had some severe injuries with my spine after I broke one of my legs. And so I had a very hard time walking. And at some points I would just have to crawl up the stairs. And I really just hated life. Already I couldn't really do anything because all day I was just in pain. And I truly really just hated everything at the time. So I had to go through some real personal physical therapy on my own, and that was a very long process. But after I did get through that, I was running a business throughout high school that had to slow down during COVID, and I had no purpose at all. And I think that is really the main point for anyone that is truly unhappy, that they don't have a purpose. And I had absolutely none. I had no vision of what I wanted to do and how I was going to get anywhere. I just knew that I was unhappy doing nothing. So I was just sitting down playing video games all day, just watching Netflix, anime, just wasting all day, eating just terrible food, just rotting my body away. And on top of that, just having extreme physical pain. So it was just a really tough time. But after that, you just work extremely hard to kind of fix your body. And then that made me say that for no matter what, over any money or anything, my physical health will always be the number one priority, then followed by kind of my goals and purpose. So that was pretty much how I got to where I am now, and how I am very obsessed with fitness and as well as macro and making money, because I do find purpose in learning and expanding my thought and talking to great people and making money and running businesses. So now it's been going very well. So now that we've shared our experiences, I'm sure many of you have gone through or are now experiencing a rock bottom type of situation. And what's personally helped me is just working harder, and everyone knows what they need to do. I mean, quite literally, everyone knows if you want to be successful, you need to work harder and do some things that you need to sacrifice like a lot. So a lot of people don't have any purpose in that, or they have no purpose in their everyday lives. And if I was still kind of looking purposefully out into the distance and saw nothing, I can assure you I would be very, very depressed now. So I'm sure if you are going through that, you are not working hard enough, as that is probably the sad way to put it, and just crucial facts. You probably don't have any vision on what you want to do, and that's okay. I mean, before I really figured it out, I was trying 4 or 5 different things just to try to figure out what I enjoyed, because you kind of have to narrow down what you don't like first, and then you find something that you inevitably do like, and maybe you don't even love it, but to love something you kind of do have to try, fail, and have some hardships with it. And I'm sure that's very difficult for someone who is going through some extremely hard times right now to hear, but that's really just the crucial fact of the matter.
Maybe not the best for hard, well, I guess for hard times. I think back to something Nietzsche said, where's the effect of pretty much people can sustain anyhow as long as they have a why. So this is where you have like the why of meaning coming into play. So that's something that I think has been very accurate for myself. And the second thing is if you're trying to find something to do, or you're trying to find out like what the answer is, and you're struggling with that, if you can start by figuring out what the answer is not, sometimes you can back in to the answer without having to jump into the answer. Again, it's not applicable for all situations, but it is a useful, not hack, but a useful way to frame a situation if you find yourself getting stuck.
Here's how we hit rock bottom.